Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. What's up, everybody? Here we are again, another edition of Hidden Tracks. I'm here with Matt from the awesome band Hurry. How you doing today, Matt?
I am doing pretty well, thank you.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Like I do, diving through Bandcamp, I came across your stuff, then realized you were in another band I used to love, and just made me have to reach out to you and find out everything that you're doing and why you're still creating fucking awesome music. So welcome to the show.
That's cool. I didn't realize you found me on Bandcamp. That's very cool.
That's how I find most of my music. I spend a lot of time on there trying to find something that catches me, and then I'll listen to every single thing there. And then I usually end up being someone who needs a physical copy of something, so I purchase to help support you guys. So
that's great.
But again, welcome to the show. I'm really honored to have you here. So why don't you give me a little background? I know I don't want to tell the story of Hurry, but if you want to give a quick synopsis of how this all came together.
Yeah. As you alluded to, I was in a band before Hurry that was called Everyone Everywhere. And, in that band, I was, we were all writing the music together, but I was playing bass. And, about 10 years ago now, I just started to kind of get the itch to write my own songs kind of outside of that, and also like play guitar more, just because when you're playing bass in a band, you get kind of stuck in it sometimes. And so I just started writing songs on my own at home and recording little demos. And, it was just one of those things that like added up over time. And then once I'd written enough songs, I just felt like, why not try to make my own record, and why not try to play some shows? And it started very unintentionally and very casually, and kind of just kept going from there.
Well, I'm glad it did, because I mean, what I love when I find something that I just attach to, I started to coin this phrase. It gives me a nostalgic feeling. It brings me back to a time, but what's coming out is new. So it's not like an nostalgic act. It's just taking, an older sound that I loved and just making it relevant and again. And
right.
That's why the nostalgic thing is what I go off of when I started to listen to it. I was like, fuck, I forgot how much I miss this sound of music.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I can really relate to that. I feel like, and maybe this is just true for everybody, but I feel like most of the new music I get really into is something that kind of reminds me of something else, and to your, doing something like a sound that I feel like I'm missing, or like, but yeah. And I think that informs a lot of my writing too.
Yeah, and I mean, there's that time, like I've said it a couple times on here, when they're like, oh, there's a revival of something. Like, it's not a revival. The music never fucking went away. People were still creating that music. Just you weren't listening to it at that time. So when you find it, you're like, oh, it's a revival of an emo revival. And like, we're on the 23rd revival of emo now, whatever. But it's just like, it never went away. It just wasn't in the forefront, and it wasn't, in front of you at that time.
Yeah, right. It's probably also just generational too, where, like anytime something like that happens, I feel like it's just because the right amount of time has passed, where the people who are now making music are the ones who were listening to like the last version of it.
Yeah.
And that's like what informs the way they think of songwriting, and like how things sound, like I think that's ultimately why my music sounds the way it does is because I grew up listening to a certain kind of music, and when I sit down to write, that's just sort of where my head naturally goes.
Yeah. Now, when you're growing up in music, I mean, those are I start out, there's two huge moments in your life. It's the first time you hear music and then the first time you find your own music. Do you
Hmm.
remember the first time you heard music as a child growing up and what maybe it was?
Um, my earliest musical memories are I had, you know, I when I was a kid, cassettes were still a thing, and when I was like probably like four or like pretty young, I got like a. My family used to go on car trips a lot because my grandparents lived up in New York State, and I got a little Fisher Price like Walkman basically that could play cassettes, and I remember I had two cassettes. One of them was like the Beach Boys' greatest hits, and the other one was Dangerous by Michael Jackson.
Was it
Um,
the Orange Beach Boys greatest hits one? The outside of the cassette was orange because that was my first tape ever.
I don't remember. I want to tell you what I picture in my head when I think of it, but I like to me, I just see sort of a photograph. I could even be completely making it up, but I
It's for a
did
good
like
story.
whatever it was the Beach Boys like hits. And yeah, Dangerous for some reason. I don't know why I got either of those. I think it was just my parents decided that's what I should listen to.
They were in the bargain bin. That's why.
Yeah. That could be true.
Yeah. Now, when you started growing up and finding out what music was all about, do you remember like the first thing that you were able to buy? Do you remember the first CD or tape that you bought yourself?
Yeah, I do. It was it was Dookie by Green Day. And it was because it was sort of simultaneously like my introduction to punk alternative music in general. Where when I was in second grade when Dookie came out, um, and I had a friend in second grade who had an older brother who had the tape, and the kid brought it into school, and he had like a Walkman, and he was passing it around, and like we were all taking turns listening to it. And the main attraction we were listening to it for was because in the song Longview they curse, and we were in second grade, so everybody was like, "Oh my god, you got to hear what they're saying in this song." And but I, that alone, it was like so cool, and I never heard music like that before. So I don't really remember like the conversation that led me to it, but I did end up getting the cassette of Dookie. My parents must have bought it for me, and so that I didn't spend my own money on it because I was in second grade, but that was the first
Wish
sort of
list.
that was the first thing that like I actually wanted.
Yeah. Now, where did I mean? That's a pivotal moment, and every time someone says a grade they were in when they got something, it just makes me feel old. I won't tell you what grade I
Sure,
was in
sure.
when Dookie came out. So, but it's just, did that start to open a rabbit hole of music for you in second grade, or was it just like I'm listening to Green Day for now? And then when did it start to you start to find that it's usually start finding that tunnel of music that you're going to gravitate towards for a while and stay there?
Yeah, it was soon after that, and I don't know like how I think just like from other friends I found out about around that time where are you from?
I'm from New Jersey.
Okay, so like down by Philly or like more north?
No, outside of New York City.
Okay. Well, anyway, and around that time in like the starting in like the mid 90s, maybe a little before, there was a radio station in Philly called Y100. Um, and it was just sort of like an alt rock station. So it was playing all that stuff, you know, and so around that time, I think I started listening to that radio station all the time. And, when I would have like sleepovers at a friend's house or something, we would listen to that station all night. And and that's where I started to sort of like just hear all that like now seminal like 90s indie, or not indie, but like alternative rock music, and like learning all that stuff and finding out about all those bands, and which led to me getting more CDs. Dookie's actually the only cassette I ever bought, because it was like right when the transition was happening. But yeah, it was like that was sort of where the continued education came in, like early in my life, and all that stuff just started like soaking into my brain.
Is that when it started to feel important to you? Like it was, did it create a sense of being when it came to music? I know there was, for me growing up there, sometimes it was like you were with your friends because you all like the same music. And it's
Right.
almost, it's like still to this day, you go to a concert, you're just friends you haven't met yet. You're all there for the same thing, but was it like that? Did it start to, did you gravitate towards people that had the same likes in music as you did?
Um, Honestly, no. And I think the reason for that was like at that time, um, like that music was sort of the pop music of the day in a way. Um,
Definitely. Yeah.
so like, because I was a kid, I guess that was just sort of like what most kids were listening to. Um, just because that was like the most popular music. So, everyone listened to Nirvana, and everybody listened to Pearl Jam, and Stone Temple Pilots or whatever. And so I think I didn't really make friends that way until you hit middle school or something, and I feel like that's where like the crux of like pop music slash like, oh no, my identity is this music, and it's no longer just, I don't know, you start to make friendships more that way at that age. I think I was just too young to really discern friendships based on like taste in art.
Yeah. I think I'm still maybe too young to discern friendships based on art, but
I was friends with the kids who lived closest to me and my parents' friends' kids.
yeah, that's true. Whoever you could ride your bike to, it was, and ask someone to come out and play. Those were pretty much your friends until you got a car.
Yes, exactly.
So when did you start to really get into? When did you start to play music? What was it? Did you have the crazy piano lessons like 90 million of us had to take, or were you able to choose your own path?
I chose my own path. I did do like, in elementary school, I played the viola when I was in third grade, and then in fourth and fifth grade, I played the trumpet. Like I did that stuff, but I didn't like, I think I knew I liked music, so I just wanted to be in the band, but I never like connected with those instruments in any way. It felt like homework a little bit. And I wasn't really good at them either. But it's funny because the thing I sort of just talked about with like that moment where your friendships start to split, and like you start realizing that stuff more. When I was in like sixth grade, I think like one of my oldest childhood friends got a guitar, and one of my other friends who he was kind of friends with had a drum set, and we were like, oh, we could start a band or something. And so I bought a bass guitar because I was like, well, that's what they need. And I took some bass lessons and stuff, and then we would get together sometimes. And keep in mind, we're in like sixth grade, so like our parents are putting us together. um but and we would like try to have like band practice or whatever, and they just wanted to like try to cover Led Zeppelin songs and stuff. And I feel like in those moments, in a sort of subtle way, I was realizing like my interest in this is different from their interest in this.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't quite put my finger on what I was really feeling at that point, but yeah, around that time is when I started getting into like, oh, let me try to play the instruments that these musicians I admire play. And and I took lessons, but I even lessons on guitar felt like homework to me, and I never really tried, and I was never even really very good at any of them because I wasn't motivated and I didn't really know what to do. But yeah, like middle school was definitely when I sort of got guitars and started to like think about how I might be able to um, make that stuff a bigger part of my life.
Now, you and your two friends, you had to have had a name that band.
Oh yeah, we had a
Do
name.
you what was the name of that band?
It was called Inferno.
Oh, all right. It's not as terrible as most of the first bands that I get out here for first names. Not bad.
Yeah,
Inferno.
it's not that embarrassing. It's embarrassing if you were to have seen the three of us, you know, and I don't think we really embodied the vibe of Inferno, but it seemed cool.
Now, when you started doing this up, what was your first live performance in front of like strangers or did you have any the first time you performed live? Was it as a middle schooler or something? Was it a talent show at school?
Ooh, I don't think I like, save for like school band stuff. I don't think I performed in front of people until I was in like 10th grade. There was a pretty long gap from when I like got a guitar until I actually had a band and songs and like was ready to play.
Do you remember the first performance you ever
I
played?
do. Yeah, it was so I actually joined I can't remember. It was either 10th or 11th grade. I can't totally remember, but um I there was this guy in I took this weird class called information technology, which like was not a real class, but they had a screen printing machine, so we would all take it so we could bootleg band t-shirts. But there was this kid Luke in that class who I was like got to know a little bit, and he told me how he had a band and they needed a new singer and guitar player, and I just volunteered myself, even though I had never played guitar in a band before and I had never sang in a band before. Um, but I volunteered myself, and then I went to the first practice, and it was rough and we sucked, but I just started trying to like fake my way through everything and figure it all out. And that band was actually Everyone Everywhere. Like we weren't called Everyone Everywhere, but it was all the same people, just in like a different configuration.
What was the name of that band?
That band was called Modera, Modera. And it was our first show with me in the band was my first show ever, which was at like it wasn't like a VFW hall, but it was some kind of hall for somebody, like an Italian social club or like some kind of thing like that.
Well, that's where all great bands start, though.
Yeah. It was in. It's funny because I like back then there was an Italian social club in like West Philly that like everyone dreamed of playing at. Like all the kids in the suburbs, like it was just cool DIY shows there. But yeah, my first show was in Westchester, Pennsylvania, at whatever club it is. I think it was like an Irish American club or something. Someone would know if I ask somebody besides me. I'm notoriously I don't remember the most detailed details of stories.
Mm. Now, after having that performance, do you remember what it felt like when the performance was over for you?
It was exciting, and I remember, we were old enough then where people started to have like digital cameras that could like take video. And some people had taken. I remember there being some videos of the show, and I just remember being really excited, and it definitely feeling good and exciting and invigorating, and I wanted to do it more. Like, definitely like had the bug at that point.
Yeah, and well, I'm guessing everyone else in the band did because you went on to continue to create a bunch of awesome stuff, and many years later, here we are,
Right.
continuing
Yeah.
to create. So that feeling had to have been exhilarating, which is awesome. And for what you're doing now with Hurry, I mean, if someone, you just met a stranger
Mm-hmm.
and you told them you were an artist, what song of yours would you play for them that you would say, hey, here you go, this best describes what I do?
Mm, wow. I think I might play them a song called "When I'm With You," um, which is from an album we released in 2016. Only
Guided
because,
meditation.
yeah, guided meditation. Only because I think people seem to like that song. It's been in like some TV shows, and like I feel like that song has been successful. So my gut is to just assume that that's the good one to show people. Um, and then I think like my artistic answer is probably um, the song "It's Dangerous" from the new record, "Fake Ideas," just because I think it's like the most like modern up to date example of sort of what I'm trying to do.
It's a banger of a song, so I mean,
Thanks, yeah.
you're picking wisely.
But it's hard because when you're like someone writing music, like usually the newest thing you made is your favorite thing, and that's because it's the newest thing and it's most representative of sort of what you're into in the moment. So
Hmm.
it's so easy. Like I always just want to say whatever the newest thing is, um, because when I listen to like songs that are older that I wrote a while ago, um, like your life changes so much over
Yeah.
time. Sometimes you're like, it doesn't even feel like me, or like it doesn't feel like I wrote this song.
No, and that's where, a lot of times when people start to fall in love with an artist or music, and that's where things change, and you'll find people will be like, I like the old shit. And it's
Right,
like, well, that's great. It's always there for you to listen to, but just like you, that person who was writing those songs is having different life experiences and growing older. And guess what? Things and responsibilities and thoughts change. And that
right.
takes a hold of your writing style, and they're allowed to do that. So I hate that old, stigma. Well, I like the old shit better than the new shit. Well, yeah, okay. Sometimes bands do go off the deep end at times because they think it's time to experiment way too much.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
but I
And
mean,
there's
if
certainly like cynical releases if a band is like extremely popular and just trying to kind of keep the cash flow going or something. Like there's certainly examples where you can point to like new material and be like, this is bullshit or something.
yeah,
But I make this joke all the time. Anytime I'm like recording a new record or like in that like long process ahead of the record and people are like, how is it? What do you think? Like the quip I always make is that I think it's good and it's my favorite thing. And I was like, but every band who's ever released a bad record probably also thought it was the best record they've ever made,
yeah.
Because it's just natural. Like when you're writing and you're making something new, like you're making it because you want to and you're excited and it's like representative of what you're feeling and what you're into. But to your point, like, if people like the old stuff, they may not connect with that and they're going to be like, this band sucks now. Uh, so it's like it's a funny thing. I don't think people who are like fans of music always like think about that unless it's a band that they're like so super dedicated to that like they're so like empathetic or whatever.
Do you have any bands like that you're super dedicated to, that you're empathetic about? If something comes out and it's not that great, you're still just like, well, it's where they are right now, and I'm just gonna learn to love it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think like the Lemonheads are a great example of that, where I don't actually think they have any bad records, but I don't love like the first like couple like super punk ones, but the Lemonheads as we know them, that's like with Evan Dando's like issues. I feel like there's like always a handful of songs on every album where you're just like, what is going on here?
And one of his issues just popped up because I was supposed to see him and the show was postponed. So
Yeah, yeah,
And I heard some stuff that happened in LA from people who were at the show. So I was like, looks like the Jersey show is probably not going to happen. And sure as shit, didn't happen. It was supposed to happen on Thursday and it didn't. So I'm like,
yeah.
fuck.
I don't know the details of what happened, but I do know, um, and I was actually talking to Lauren from Warriors about this because we were just on tour together a few months ago. And they were talking to me about those shows coming up and how they were excited to play with the Lemonheads. And I told them, like, I saw the Lemonheads in December, I want to say, like this
Hmm.
just recently. And it was like, I'm a diehard. I love, as we were just saying, I have empathy and
Yeah.
everything. But it was like a pretty awful performance. Which I don't say lightly, and I say with empathy. But he just seemed like he was in like pretty rough shape, and hopefully he's like doing all right. But
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. Cause I mean, I was in Denver and I went to see, Jawbreaker and
mhm.
Descendants face to face Sam I am out in Denver. And sitting with two guys. They're like, yeah, no, we're here from LA. We're here to see the show. They're like, oh man, let me tell you about a show I just saw. I was like, what? They're like, Lemonheads. We were there 2 nights ago. And I got to tell you, I was like, don't tell me, man. I'm supposed to see him in 2 weeks. And then they tell me the story. And I was like, there's no way the show's going to happen. And yeah,
Mm,
sure enough. But
maybe
that sucks.
you don't have to drag it out, but I'm after we record, maybe I'll ask you what the story was.
Yeah.
But yeah, but they're a band like that musically for sure. Bands like Teenage Fan Club,
One of my
got
favorites of all time.
totally, like I will always listen to and love what they put out, even though it's changed so much over the years. And Guided by Voices is like a band that I always give every album a shot, and even when one doesn't connect with me, I can still look at it and be like, I get what's happening here and I
Yeah.
respect it. Like there's
Well, Pollard writes so much stuff, and that's always been my thing. I'm a huge GBV fan as well. Like we're
yeah,
hitting on the same bands here, and like I remember the first time I saw him in the '90s, and I've just followed everything ever since. And I was a huge Tobin Sprout fan too, of his own solo stuff, and then like Pollard writes 5,000 songs a year and decides to
right,
record all of them and put them out under something. And I'm like, how can someone do this while
totally.
taking bottles of Jack Daniels to the head every day? Like I don't get it. But you got to weed through that because he writes so much stuff and he puts it out under so many different monikers. Not that it's like, how do you keep up with guys like that?
Yeah, and I mean like yeah, but it's amazing because like he especially will still put out records where like there was one last year that was called Earthman Blues, which was like a very strange album, and it had a lot of like weird orchestral moments, and it was kind of all over the place, but I like really loved it. um so much more than like some of the straightforward rock stuff they've been putting out recently.
Yeah, and he's also got a younger band of brothers now too, who are bringing more of that rock style to what he's writing to.
Totally, yeah. I think when like Doug Gillard is in the band, he just wants to rock.
Yeah. Well, we got a nice little pairing of things that we're into together there. So,
Sure.
and just talking about shows, I mean, do you remember your first concert ever? Were you dragged to it by your parents or something, or do you
Yeah,
remember?
it was.
Yeah,
It was the Beach Boys at the Valley Forge Music Center in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania.
nice.
Yeah.
I wish that was my first one.
What was your first one?
My first one was Kenny Rogers, dragged
That's
to by
like
my parents.
that's not so bad.
Yeah, but the Beach Boys are my first band ever. Like the first
Okay.
thing that was my first musical memory was the Beach Boys, and that was why I asked you. But because I remember the first thing I asked for as a small child, like 5 or 6 years old, was a Beach Boys tape, and that's why I remember getting the greatest hits, and it was orange, and I still have it to this
Yeah,
day. It
yeah.
doesn't play
Wow.
anymore, but I still have it. But that's why I asked.
No,
Do you
yeah.
remember?
I remember the show being cool. I mean, I don't remember like I remember like moments of the show. Like I remember when they played Be True to Your School, like a squad of cheerleaders came out and like danced around for the
Yeah,
song. But and it was an
consummate
event.
showman.
Yeah, and it was in
Yeah,
a venue where the stage was round and the stage rotated the whole time, like it's very slowly.
yeah.
So I remember like that about it. But I wish I remember more because, as someone who like grew up as a fan and then like continued to be a fan as an adult and like learned more of the story and about the individuals and their solo material, like it's crazy for me to think that like I did get to see like the Beach Boys with like Carl before he died, and
Yeah.
but I was too young to like appreciate that that was what was happening. uh but
Yeah, but
yeah,
you still have it in your life. It's still a moment in your life that you have that no one can take away, which I think that's the kind of stuff that's awesome about that.
totally. But yeah, that was my first the first concert I ever saw.
How about the first concert you got to pick?
um I think it was probably I want to say I was either in eighth grade or ninth grade. I definitely couldn't drive yet. Um, but it was the Get Up Kids, Hot Rod Circuit, and Superchunk. And they played at the Electric Factory in Philadelphia. And I remember my friend's dad drove us into the city for the show. Um, and yeah, I think that was my first one. And then like right around that time too, I went to my first DIY show, um, which was at the Wayne Presbyterian Church outside of Philly, and Me Without You played, and it was actually their first show.
Wow.
And I went because my cousin was friends with Me Without You's drummer, like they're from the same town, and it was one of those things where it was like, well, Matt, you're into music, you should come see my friend's band play. Um, so I like didn't even know the band. I just like went to the show because I knew there was like something happening, uh and that was like also a mind-blowing experience in a different way, just to see like people like moshing in the like multi-purpose room of a church. um
Yep.
but those are the first two. I can't remember the exact order that they happened in, but they were around the same time.
Listen, those are great first shows. So that Hot Rod Circuit Get Up Kids, when I saw them, it had to have been the same time because they played Bowery, but it wasn't Superchunk. It was at the drive-in, Young at the drive-in, Hot Rod
Oh,
Circuit and
whoa.
Get Up Kids. Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy now to think that like Superchunk opened that show,
yeah,
because like, now if you put that same show on, I feel like Superchunk would be like the clear headliner. Not that it's like a competition, but they're just like, to me, Superchunk is this like seminal band now, and it's like it's funny that they just had like a 30-minute opening set on that tour.
yeah. They're one of those bands that, I mean, they've been around forever, and I just think they were always on that edge
Mm-hmm.
of everyone knowing who they were. Like they were just always right there, about to be a band that everyone, when you would say the name Superchunk, would know, but they just never got to it. Like they were on the lines of Dinosaur Jr., where you can say Dinosaur Jr. and a majority of people know who they are. They may not know their music, but they know the name. And I think Superchunk was like almost right there to do that same thing, and it didn't happen. But
Yeah,
they're fucking awesome.
I guess too that was sort of like in between eras for them. Like because it was like after like the old seminal stuff, and it was before sort of like the newer stuff they've done in the last decade that I feel like has like kind of reinvigorated them. Kind of similar to Dinosaur Jr., really. Similar like paths, I guess. But anyway, but yeah, those are the first shows I saw. And I wish I knew Superchunk back then, but I had no idea who they were when I went to the show.
Do you have a favorite show you've ever attended?
um I do. I mean, there's probably a lot, but um the first one that popped in my head that was kind of an obvious one was I went to like when Brian Wilson did like the Pet Sounds 40th anniversary tour, or I think,
Mm-hmm.
where like him and Al Jardine went around and played the whole album. That was definitely a pretty memorable thing for me. And Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think like the first time, like seeing Pavement at those reunion shows was like really amazing. I went to a couple of those because that was a band that I just like never thought I would get to see, and I'm a huge fan. So it was like I feel like that's like a perfect scenario, you know, when you've spent like many years loving a band and then you get to finally see them. And so that was really cool. Also, I went to like that first My Bloody Valentine reunion in New York in like 2009 or something, and that was definitely a wild show. Um, those are the first that are popping into my head.
Mm. Yeah, getting to see like the bands that I mean that literally just happened for me, weeks ago when I was in Denver for I like the lineup for me was one of the things like I'm old. I was around when the Descendants were playing and I just never got to see them. And
Mm-hmm.
I never got to see the true nature of the band and I was like Face to Face is one of my favorite bands of all time, and Jawbreaker's doing "Dear You." I'm like, and Descendants are opening, and Sam I Am's fucking. I'm like, there's no way I can miss this fucking show. I don't care what I have to do to go to it. And like being able to see the Descendants when it was over, I was like, wow, that was. I'm so glad. I've loved them for so long, and I never got to see them, and that was a big thing. And like you for Pavement, like, and then I think back to, I saw Pavement for $11 at Roseland Ballroom in 1992.
Right,
And it's
right.
like thinking about that kind of stuff where it's like guessing I did probably take it for granted being 16 back then and going to see that show and just being like how amazing they are and how big influence they have on so many people, but they haven't played in forever. And it was a big thing when they were doing reunion shows, like just being like, fuck, never thought you'd get to see this band. And having that moment to be able to see them, there's almost nothing in the world besides the place going on fire or, having what just transpired in the world and everything being canceled. But just that moment of hearing that first chord come in and just being like, fuck, I'm getting to see this. This is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, I had a lot of experiences like that in the last like 10 or so years, you know, because I feel like a lot of those bands came back and, you know, Dinosaur Jr. came back, Pavement came back, the Pixies came back, you know, you name it. Um, yeah. So those are all like cool. I mean, and also like seeing some like legacy musicians is also, I mean, I guess those other bands are technically legacy
Yeah.
musicians also. But like even more like, you know, like seeing like Paul McCartney or Bruce Springsteen, like those have been cool experiences also. I don't like go see tons of those, but you know, the ones that I feel like are like quote unquote important.
Yeah. Being able to have the opportunity to still see it before it's gone type of
Totally.
thing.
Yeah. So that's all been like super cool. Um, the another really good. I don't know if I should keep talking about great shows I've seen, but I saw like Kendrick Lamar play right after Damn came out, and that was so good. Yeah, I don't. I could continue to think of things for the next couple hours.
I could sit here and talk shows all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
go to literally was at a show last night, a fucking amazing show. Was that awesome? Had an awesome round of sneaky show. I'll tell this story because anybody that's going to be
Okay.
listening to this, um, go down to Asbury Lanes, and to go see The Darkness, and I'm
Oh,
stoked.
nice.
And I've seen The Darkness so many times. They're one of the best professional bands I tell people to see, even if you don't like their music. Fucking unbelievable! Like
I
it just
love
an
I love that guy's TikTok channel.
yeah. Justin's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm eating dinner and walking across the street in the Wonder Bar, and all of a sudden I see Chamberlain's playing, and I was like, "What the fuck? I didn't know they were playing here." I'm like, "Fuck!" I'm like, "I love that band," and I was like, "All right, well, it's not like I can see them anyway." Show ends at The Darkness. My friend's like, "Let's go grab a beer at Wonder Bar." I was like, "All right, yeah, that show's probably over." Walk in, Chamberlain hasn't gone on yet,
Whoa.
and I'm just like, wait, is this for real? So like I walk out of one show at a venue, walk into another venue to see another band that I absolutely love, and then just fucking killed it. My wife's looking at me the whole time. She's like, "You are so excited right now," and I was the DD. I drink gallons of water, and she's like, you're you're dancing around like you're drunk and you haven't had a drink. And I'm like, I know. I'm like, I just went from one awesome show to another awesome show unexpectedly. This is the greatest thing that could happen to somebody like me.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a similar experience in Asbury. That's like an Asbury Park phenomenon, I think. Uh, I remember we played the Lanes once, and I walked outside after our set, and Marshall Crenshaw was playing outside at the Stone Pony. So we
And
just like
everything's
got
so
to listen
close
to
right
that.
there. That's what's awesome. Like you got the Pony, you got Asbury Lanes, and the Wonder Bar there. And then if you go a little bit further down the street, now you have House Independence, which is
Right.
getting big. But yeah, wow, we can go on about shows. But I had to tell that story because it was just crazy for me, and I was like, this is. And my friends are like, dude, this is awesome for you. I'm like, I know it is. Just it's a good night. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
So, how about your favorite performance ever? Do you have a performance that you were a part of that just stands out in your mind? Like that was, one of the greatest shows I could have ever been a part of.
Um. Yeah. I mean, there's like different versions of that answer for me because, um, there's some experiences like when Everyone Everywhere went on tour in Europe. Um, we ended up playing a lot of places that were just really unbelievable. Like we were on like the southwest coast of Italy, and we played this like outdoor amphitheater on a mountainside where you could see the ocean, and it was just it wasn't like the most amazing show in the world, but it was just sort of like an unforgettable
Yeah,
place. Um, so there's things like that, and like that show always sticks in my memory, and yeah, then there are like amazing experiences like playing. We played the Exponential Music Festival in Philly a couple of years ago, which is run by WXPN, which is like a big independent station here, and that was like our first experience ever like playing a big festival stage, and kind of like being on the festival grounds and all that like behind the scenes backstage stuff that happens, and like people go golf carting you around, and so like that that's like really fun and wild and surreal. And then and also like the tour we just did this past February March with Brian Fallon and Warriors, where we were playing just like huge legendary theaters, like playing Town Hall on Broadway in New York. And
yeah,
things like that are just amazing because you're like walking backstage underground in Town Hall on Broadway, and like seeing all the mirrors with the light bulbs all over them, and it's just sort of it's like out of the movies. And so like sometimes setting can make things really memorable, but then there's shows like there was a DIY venue in Philadelphia called Everybody Hits, that was a batting cages that a guy who's now a friend of mine, David Gavigan, opened. And he just started letting people do DIY shows in there at night because this place was kind of like right in the center of where a lot of the indie music was happening in Philly at the time. And we played so many shows there as Hurry, just because like when we were a younger band, it was just like easy to book something, and it was a really nice atmosphere. But so we did a lot of like record release shows there that were like really fun and well attended, and a lot of friends played. And then that venue ended up closing January 2020, like right before the pandemic started. So it was our last show before the pandemic, was also the closing of that place. But it was a really like unforgettable night where it was kind of like sad and celebratory, and a lot of like friends and people from like the music community were there. And so that's like another thing that kind of sticks out, and like that's like the more emotional answer of like favorite show. But like I don't have any shows where I'm like, man, we really played well and I'm going to remember this forever, like none of them are.
none of them come to mind. You're like,
No, not really.
all right. No, that it's funny because sometimes when you're just stuck in that moment of you're playing your show and you're doing what you do, and when it's over, it's over. And some people can just be like, all right, cool, and on to the next
Yeah,
thing.
I'm notoriously hard on myself with that stuff, and I have a reputation in the band where we'll finish a set and we'll be like back in the green room or whatever, and the rest of the band will be like, "Man, that was great. We sounded great." And I'm just thinking like, "You're all out of your mind. That was the worst show we've ever played." So I get in my head a little bit. Sometimes I'm not the best judge of that stuff.
I mean, and that's coming from other things that you do, like your music videos and stuff. That's hard to think because it's you have a lot of fun doing other things, whether it's your posts that you post on social media to what you do with your music videos. So that's I mean that's different to hear. I mean, because it seems like you just have a lot of fun doing other things, and you're very creative in your writings, and funny about it. So the fact that you're hard on yourself and you take that serious, it's hearing that is different than what I see.
Yeah, well, that's good. I think I try to keep it that way on purpose. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just trying to manifest that, I guess. But I do have fun. I'm not. It's not to say I don't, but I think, especially like live, it's really easy to sort of like, when I'm up there, kind of like think I'm getting a vibe from the crowd, or think people aren't into something, or that I can get in my head sometimes a little bit with that stuff during a show where I'm just overthinking a bit, and I just am like, well, they all might hate this, and I don't even think I pay attention to how we're playing at that point.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of up there doing something. Uh, but I know it's good, and I do have fun, and I love like writing and making videos, and I love playing. I think like part of the thing for me that took some time to get over is just like Hurry is the first band or project or whatever I've ever done where it's like 100% me. Like I write all the music and I write all the words, and I sort of like put the band together, and so like it's
Added
so
pressure on yourself that that there's it's not that cohesive sharing of responsibility. You're putting all that pressure on yourself to make sure it's
right. And
something
it's
great.
also so easy to then make anything bad that ever happens feel like a personal judgment of you, because it's so like wrapped up in you as a person that it can be hard to separate sometimes. So I think that's like why I would often be harder on myself. I don't have as much trouble with that these days. Definitely something I have tried to work on to avoid going completely crazy.
Yeah, listen, I 100% completely understand. Same thing with this show. When I'm done, I've had interviews and I'll be like, wow, that was fucking terrible. I don't know
Right.
what I was saying. I don't, and all of a sudden I'll get like a message, oh, best interview ever, man. That was so awesome. You guys sounded like you had so much fun. And I'm like, what? It was
Yeah.
fucking terrible. What are you listening to?
Right.
And then it's just me being hard on myself because there might have been a moment where I may have fucked something up or something. Like there was one show I'll never forget. Like I didn't know the guy was in a band that I had absolutely loved, and now he's just started a new band 15 years later, and I had no fucking idea, and there was no way to find out. It was just like I'm like, how the fuck did I not know this? And then I'm like beating myself up for like 2 days straight. Like I
Right.
sounded like an idiot not knowing that.
Yeah. It's really easy to be hard on yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it you can find something about yourself to pick on at any moment of the
Uh,
day, and
oh
it's
yeah,
hard to get out of your own head that way.
definitely.
All right, let's move on to some fun questions. 17 years
Okay.
old, you just get your license. You go to pick up a friend. What was blasting on the radio?
um, at that time, it was probably like Thursday, or yeah, Full Collapse by Thursday. Um, probably some Get Up Kids, something to write home about. Um, Probably some like, man, what else? A lot of like funny hardcore, not funny, but like back then I was listening to like Bane and
Awesome band.
yeah,
Awesome
and
band from Boston.
Converge and like American Nightmare. That whole scene like was really big at the time, and I feel like in my school at least, like the kids who would listen to like Bane and Converge would also listen to like more like the emo stuff, and we were all sort of like cohabitating that space. Um, yeah, because I was also listening to like Newfound Glory and Taking Back Sunday, bands like that. So it was definitely a mix of like all that like hardcore and emo of the time.
Yeah, well, because emo was originally called post-hardcore, so it just it can fit into that hardcore level. Like that's I went to Furnace Fest this past year, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone's like, "Why are there so many emo bands at a hardcore festival?" I'm like, "Post-hardcore, dude. That's what emo was in the late '90s. It was
Right.
called post-hardcore." I'm like, they're
Yeah, I
allowed to
mean,
play
and
together.
yeah, I understand why it like feels weird because sometimes the vibes are just so different. But I, people would still like mosh and like hardcore dance at like Get Up Kids shows and stuff. It's like
Yes.
a very strange crossover.
If you had a theme song every time you walked out into public, the song came on. Do you know what song you would pick?
Oh man. Um,
Picture you're in a sitcom and you're just stepping out your door and the song comes on.
wow, that is such a hard question to answer. I I don't I want to say it would be like some very like nice like jazz clarinet music, something that would put people at ease and maybe
Yeah,
make me
something
feel good.
classy. Yeah.
Uh I don't know the real I feel like uh I hope the answer wouldn't be something embarrassing like if it was out of my control. But
You think somebody would pick
I,
something weird for you if they had a choice?
I don't know. I'm like picturing the powers that can create this like want to make fun of me, but maybe I'm going to stick with the gentle clarinet music for now. I think that would be nice. I would like that. It wouldn't bother anyone, but it might relax you.
All right. Ha- uh, do you remember the last song that you cried to?
Ooh. Um
Or band if you don't remember the song specifically?
yeah. Let me just think for a second. The last good example I the last good example I can think of was listening to the album Songs from Northern Britain by Teenage Fan Club.
Great album. Great album.
I think that's my answer.
All right. World's going to end in 5 minutes. Meteors coming crashing to Earth, and you have to listen to one song. What one song would you listen to?
I think if I'm being truthful, I would never figure it out and I would just die.
Well,
Uh,
that's what I say. I'd be scrolling for 5 minutes to find the perfect song to die to. But
yeah, I wouldn't. I would be too stressed out. I wouldn't be able to pick something. So I'm going to try to overcome that and give you a hypothetical answer. I would probably. Hmm, I'm trying to think of something upbeat, just because I feel like I would want to just kind of like not listen to sad music in that moment. Um, Maybe I would listen to. I'm gonna say "American Girl" by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
okay, I'll
I
take
feel
it.
like it would. I feel like it would get me in a better headspace. I'd maybe would kind of forget for a second.
Now, what you just brought up a good point. Like, what do you use for mood music? Like, if you're sad, do you listen to sad music or do you listen to upbeat music to get you out of that sadness? Or does it depend on what kind of sad you're in?
I think I usually avoid very sad music when I'm feeling very sad. I think more often if I want to like medicate that feeling, I'll listen to like angry music or um, or music that's like a little more like devil may care, in its
Hmm.
attitude. Because sometimes I think like being angry can kind of like shake you through some sadness depending on what is going on. But I don't usually like pile it on with more sad music. Every now and then, but not normally. Um, it just sometimes feels like too heavy to do that for me. Um, was there a second half to that question?
No, I was,
Okay,
I just, my thing is, sometimes there's different kinds of sadness, as I say, like, remembering a loved one is a different kind of sad than being sad
totally.
because your dog just died. You know what I mean? Like, there's different kinds of sadness that, that perpetuates what type of music you may listen to in that mood.
Yeah, I
So,
I have a hard time like listening to music when I'm feeling like true grief. In those like sort of worst case examples that you outlined, things like that. I think a lot of times I feel so fragile that like I can't listen to anything because it'll just like tip
you
me
don't want
too
it to
far.
break you even more. Yeah.
Yeah. So and like even like when the pandemic started and I was like freaking out about that, like I was really not into music and I wasn't like playing my guitar or anything. I definitely avoid it in those moments. So I think like the stuff I'm talking about is when you're like maybe a little more like superficially sad, like, a person you were dating upset you or
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like that stuff I'll tend to like, I would maybe put on like Definitely Maybe by Oasis or something and just sort of like really lay into the way that those guys don't care about anything and they're
Yeah.
just like letting it rip, and you kind of like live through them vicariously.
Do you have we're kind of moving away from the term guilty pleasures.
Hmm.
I've you get to a point in your life where nothing's guilty anymore, so we just call them pleasures. But
Right.
something that do you listen to something that someone would be very surprised to find out that you get tons of enjoyment out of listening to it, like K-pop or something, or like
Um, I don't know if there's anything so surprising. Um, and mostly because of the thing you alluded to, where I just feel like people don't even bat an eye anymore.
yeah,
But I think honestly the answer would be like a lot of that like slightly more cringy like emo and pop punk I listened to in like middle and high school. That's something where like every now and then I'll throw it on just because I want to hear it and feel nostalgic. But like I do think like I really hope no one sees me listening to this or like like it because it just a lot of it can feel so juvenile sometimes. That you're just like my friends will definitely make fun of me if they hear me listening to this music right now.
yeah. Well, that's what I say, and I still try to point it out. Like I'm trying to get rid of the term guilty pleasures, and just call them pleasures but I still feel that there's that moment when you're listening and someone just like walks in on you
Right.
and you're like you could be screaming at the top of your lungs and someone's just like what the fuck are you listening to right now.
Well, yeah, it's because we're old.
Yeah.
So like it's really bad when you want to listen to music that was like made for teenagers when you were a teenager, but you're like, in your mid 30s listening to it. People are that's when people start to wonder about you.
And that's fine, they can wonder all they want, but
Yeah.
I always invite people just come through my music, look through all my CDs, my tapes, and my vinyl collection, and you will every other album be like, "What the fuck?" And I'll
Right.
just be like, "What? Like it's music. Just fuck off."
Yeah. That's the right attitude. That's good. You seem pretty secure.
Yeah, I am, but I'm not too. Like someone walked in and watching the Taylor Swift documentary on the folklore recording on
Hmm.
Disney Plus or
Yeah.
whatever it was, and I was just like, "Oh, sorry." Like, what was that? I was like, "Nah, don't you worry. Don't you worry." It was nothing. It was it was a commercial. There was a commercial. Decided to turn the TV off real quick. Don't worry about
Yeah. All right. So you got your stuff then.
it. Yeah, there is some stuff, but it's okay. But it all comes down to again for me, a good song's a good fucking song, no matter who fucking sings it, writes it, plays it. A good song's a good fucking song, and that's
Yeah.
it.
100%.
All right. Well, we're coming in on some time here. I don't want to keep you all night. So before we get into our last segment of our weekly threes, why don't you tell everybody how to follow all the stuff that Hurry's doing, all the stuff that you're doing, all your fucking handles and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're at Hurry Band, um, wherever applicable. And honestly, that's the best way to keep up. I mean, hurry.bandcamp.com, but social media, I think, is the best. If you follow us on Twitter or Instagram at Hurry Band, you'll know if something's happening.
Yeah, and what do you have coming up? Or what are you working on? What can we expect? I know you got a show coming up in the summer in Asbury, right? Which
Yeah, we just finished that tour not too long ago. So right now, my goal is to I'm about halfway through writing a record. So my goal is to continue doing that and finish another album. So there probably won't be like a ton of shows this year. But so yeah, it's a little quieter live wise, but we're working on some new stuff.
awesome. All right, so here we are in our final segment. It's our weekly threes. It's three things that you're listening to that you would like people to check out.
Oh, great. Let me pull up my Apple Music app.
I still haven't gotten in a habit to write in the chat bar here to say pull up Spotify or Apple because a question about your music listening is coming up. I gotta be more proactive. We're almost
That's
100
okay.
episodes in now, and I need to be more proactive about that.
All right. Something I've been listening to that I want people to check out. I've been listening to the album Phase Shifter by Red Cross, which is a band that I never really dove into until now.
And that's Cross with a K, people. Cross with a K.
Yeah, and it's Red with two D's and Cross with two S's and a K. So that has been really cool. I think I've been listening to the new Superchunk album so much. I know we already talked about Superchunk, but I actually think the new one, Wild Loneliness, I think is maybe their best album ever. I listen to that all the time. And I've been listening to, let's see, what's my last thing here that I want to shout out? I would say, you know what? I'm going to say Earthman Blues by Guided by Voices. I think especially I think if you're someone who does not keep up with Guided by Voices at all, and it's been a while, I think, in my opinion, Earthman Blues is the most interesting album they've made in a long time, and I think it's really, really good.
Awesome. Good three.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And my three for this week are, as always, no particular order. Horror My Friend. It is a band. The name of the album is called Home Life. They're an Australian noise rock band, I would guess. If you're into early hum, maybe check it out. Next is a band called Painted Light. The album is Comfort in the Consistency. They're from Texas. It's kind of I want to say a mathy dream pop, if you could put that in there. I know I don't got to give you something to think about when going to listen to music. And last but not least, Lizzie Farrell, an album called Bruises, UK artist. It's alt rock, Brit pop, put together, undeniable voice, really, really awesome stuff. So those are my three for this week.
I don't know any of those, and I will check them out.
Awesome. But Matt, I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the music you put out that made me find you and reach out. So I want to thank you for that. I really appreciate your artistry and what you do and continuing to create and keep creating, and we'll keep listening. But
thanks.
Thank you so much.
It's really nice, and I really appreciate that. Thanks for asking me.
Well, it's our pleasure, and everyone out there in the world, you know what to do next. You go out, you listen to Hurry, and have a great fucking time. Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions to myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band, and don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.